But yeah, Georgia Schaefer.
Yeah.
Hi guys, can you hear me okay? Woo! Yeah, good. Okay. Well, I'm Georgia. I am a senior here at K-State, and I'm majoring in pre-nursing and anthropology. So both of those are pretty sciencey, and it's funny because like Caleb had asked the icebreaker, what did you like growing up? And no, I did not like science. And so this is hilarious, but hopefully tonight you guys will kind of understand how I've grown to really come to enjoy science and be more in awe of God through science. So I'm really excited to dive into this tonight, and I'm really excited too because I feel like my whole time here at K-State I've been learning about how science and faith fit together, and I'm really excited to share that with you guys because I feel like that's a huge part of my life right now. So yeah, we're just going to dive right in. Many people believe that you can have science or faith, but not both. And even since the beginning of the scientific revolution, when many discoveries were being made about the natural world around us, scholars began making discoveries that they thought were contradictory to Christianity and what the Bible taught. In response, many people began turning from Christianity because they began to believe that there is more truth in the facts of science. And even still to this day, people think that they can believe in science or faith, but not both. So tonight, we're going to be talking about how science and faith are both actually complementary and how you can believe in both. And hopefully after tonight, you can leave thinking, to quote Bill Nye the Science Guy, science rules. And here's a little disclaimer about the Bible to begin, that a lot of scholars turn to the Bible to find evidence to not believe in it because they find that, oh, maybe the Bible doesn't talk about evolution or some things that science talks about, so therefore the Bible's false. And many scholars also claim that Genesis 1:1 through 2:3 is a cosmogony, and that means it's a story about how the universe came to be. However, that's taken care of in verse 1, and it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And then the rest of the chapters and verses are focused on the making and the preparing of the earth as a place for humans to live. The Bible was written to tell a story about Jesus, and it wasn't written to explain the way the world is, but it's a story about Jesus and how, in turn, as Christians, we can understand the world around us because of who Jesus is. So, what is science? Some fun pictures. A science is a discipline in which one studies features of the world around themselves and tries to describe their observations systematically and critically. And what is faith? Well, there's two senses to faith. And the first is trust towards God because you are persuaded that He is trustworthy. That means going beyond believing that something is true, and it goes to believing in something and committing oneself to God. And this is why some people will not become Christian believers, because they don't want to give themselves to God. The Old Testament commonly appeals to great things God has done for His people in order to remind them of their reasons to trust Him. For example, Psalm 136 was the creation, the deliverance from Egypt, the giving of the promised land, and the constant care for His people. And then the second sense is the faith, and this is the set of truths that Christians believe. An important thing to note that's pretty cool is that science and God both take faith to believe in. Neither of them have 100% observable evidence, so it takes faith to believe both in God and in science. My first point tonight is that science and faith are complementary. Faith and reason are not at odds with each other. And this is really cool because a couple weeks ago, one of my professors gave this example, and I don't think he meant it to mean this, but I took it this way, and I'm excited to show you this, so it was worth something. So he takes a piece of chalk, I have a pen here, and he drops it, right? And he says, well, what just happened? And he asks people to explain, what do you think was the reason, or what happened? And they say, well, the pen fell. And he says, well, why did it fall? And there's two explanations here, because someone might say, well, gravity, obviously, because there's an equation that you can use, and you can take the force of gravity and the mass of the object and other physics things that I don't know about, and you can calculate, well, that's physically why that pen fell, and it's standing there now, and it's still. And another explanation could be, well, God had it in His plan that that pen was going to fall, and that's also true, because God did know that at this exact moment, Georgia was going to drop the pen, and it was going to fall on the ground. So another example to further that is about a scab. And I like this because it's kind of medicine-y. And so say like you run into this kid and he has a huge scab on his knee. And you ask him, how did you get that? And he says, God put it there. See, he could have answered with a particular chain of events that led to the wound. Like, oh, I was attacked and tackled to the ground by a mountain lion, but I won. But instead, he gave the answer, God put it there, which means God could have put it there by designing the human skin with the properties of softness and self-healing. These are both complementary answers. And another example, just to make sure we really have a grasp that they can be complementary, is using an airplane. And this is like a little bit intense, so like hang on here guys, but don't get crazy. But say like an airplane crashes, okay? And people are wondering, why would that even happen? Like, why would such a tragic thing happen? Some people would say, well, God had it in his plan and he knew that that was going to happen, which is true. God knew exactly when that plane was going to crash and why, and he had a reason and a purpose for all of that. But then another explanation that could explain the physics behind it, maybe like a part of the jet engine failed and the plane came down because it couldn't stay in the air because it was broken. So both of these things are true. And these three examples of the pen, the scab, and the airplane can be complementary and can have complementary claims, and so can science and faith. Good science and good faith both need sound critical thinking. Faith is an act of rational behavior, and given who God is and the reasons he's given for trusting in him, it's unreasonable not to trust God. Yes, sometimes it's true that faith goes beyond what we can verify, but that's true of every kind of relational faith. Take marriage, for example. You trust one another's claims to love you, but how else can you verify that without taking the risk? My second point tonight is that science is a gift. God gave us science to understand him better and to be able to find ways to experience him more. Not only does reason help faith, but faith helps us reason. We can see our lives more clearly because of our faith in God. God is intelligent, and he gave us science to become more in awe of how intelligent and wonderful he is. For me, I'm in awe of science when I look at the complexity of the human body, and maybe I look at the musculoskeletal system or the cardiovascular system and all the biochemical reactions that are happening every second and how they perfectly come together so that all the organs can work together. It's just mind-boggling to me, and every time I have a class, I just sit there with my jaw open and I'm like, God, you're so intelligent and so cool and smart. And Pallas, for example, looks at plants and the biology of plants, and she sees the beauty in how God created that and the rest of nature and how beautiful it is and how just amazing that God gave us that gift. And other people might use science and examine things like animals or other aspects and features of nature, physics and chemistry, or maybe the psychology of the brain. So these are all examples that we can use to be more in awe of God by observing the natural world around us. You guys, God created science. Like, God literally made science because chemistry and physics and biology had to have been present when he created us, because there's millions of chemical reactions that are happening every second. And one really cool one that I'm always in awe of is cellular respiration. And here's your biology lesson. Yeah, okay, ready guys to learn something? Okay, so cellular respiration is how your cells make energy and how we breathe. And this explains how we inhale oxygen, what our cells do with it when it's inside us, and how you exhale carbon dioxide. This involves the complex process of glycolysis, and then it goes through the Krebs cycle, which is really cool. And this is where your cells produce energy and carbon dioxide, and then they produce NADH and FADH. And these will be important in a second, so you're going to want to remember those. Okay, so then the third step, which is my favorite part, it's super cool, jaw-dropping, hope you feel this way too. But NADH and FADH are both oxidized into NAD and FAD. So this means they give off a hydrogen, okay? And I don't know if you guys remember anything from chemistry, but hydrogens are positively charged, okay? So they're protons. And that means they need an electron to balance out the charge. And so when the hydrogen leaves, it takes off an electron and a proton. And this is super cool because then the electrons travel down the electron transport chain and the hydrogens go outside the membrane. And this is the coolest part. Because of the charge difference, this creates the perfect proton charge gradient. So then later, the hydrogens can be pumped back in and the electrons can meet up. So we form an H2O molecule. Like what? Okay, so science. Okay. So how crazy, like it forms a perfect welcome. But yeah, just an example of how amazing God is and how smart he is, that all works perfectly together and creates those things. Another really cool thing is that science is a reflection of its creator. There's still much to discover, and no matter how hard we try to study it or learn about it, we will never learn everything. And there's always things to discover, and there will always be things that are going to be unknown. My third point tonight is that Jesus really existed. Although God gave us science as a gift to understand him, unlike any other revelation of God, Jesus Christ is the clearest, most specific picture of God revealing himself to us. Last week, Levi talked about the Bible and how, although there are multiple writers, none of the Bible is contradictory. Good reasoning requires data, which can be plural and means observations with a big S because it's plural. And so this is really cool because Jesus had multiple eyewitnesses accounts for his life. And so that's good reasoning to believe in Jesus. In Psalm 8, the believer who wrote it marvels over how the God who is majestic enough to have made the heavens, not to mention the earth and all its creatures, would take any notice of mere man. But yes, we do have a God who cares for us. And in fact, he loves us so much that he sent his son to die for us. God sent his son to earth because God is intelligent, and he knew that we need Jesus. Jesus himself took on the form of man and accepted the punishment for our sin when he died on the cross. And I'm going to leave you with one last example of how God's super cool and how he reveals himself to us through science. And this is an excerpt from Louis Giglio's speech, Laminin. And just as a little background, laminins are proteins that bind to other cell membranes in order to hold together all the tissues within an organism.
I'll tell you. I got back so fast, I'm like, wow, what in the world? He said, you want to see an actual laminin molecule? I don't know, man. The diagram was cool for me. I'm happy with that. Don't bother sending anything else. I'm like, yes! And he sends me this image, an electron microscopic image of an actual laminin protein molecule. It looks just like this. How crazy is that? That the stuff that holds our bodies together, that's holding the lining of your organs together, holding your skin on, is in the perfect shape of the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ. And immediately I'm thinking about the words of Paul in Colossians 1. You know this beautiful passage where Paul's talking about the supremacy of Christ and the sufficiency of Christ. He says, for by him, talking about Jesus Christ, all things have been created. Things in heaven and things on earth. All things were created by Jesus and for Jesus. But then the next verse goes on to say this. It's crazy. And he, Jesus, is before all things. And in him, that is, in Jesus Christ, all things hold together. That's right. It's right there. I'm like, of course they do. Of course they do. Everything holds together in Jesus Christ. And he goes on at the end of this paragraph, and he just tells the story of grace. He says, for God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in Christ, and through Christ to reconcile to himself all things by making peace through his blood shed on the cross.
So I'm going to leave you guys with these concluding thoughts. If we have a proper hold on Christian belief, we will love the natural world and will respect the study of it. We can also come to these studies with full mental vigor, confident that God's truth can hold up under any challenge. And not only that, but also that his truth will both illuminate and enrich those studies. So you guys, if the leaders that have the paper with the questions would stand up again really quick, please. And everybody else, you guys will break off and try to get in groups of 5 or 6, and you can answer the study questions that are on that paper.